Hi y'all, welcome back to the garden for the first time in a while. I am recovering from a sinus thing. I used to refer to it as my annual sinus infection that happened around February in Alabama, but since I moved to Ohio, I don't usually get one. But the weather has been so up and down, I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm feeling closer to normal today than I have in the past week. But it's 70 degrees outside, and I'm going to take you around and show you some things and talk to you about why that's a little bit of a problem right now. So the rising temperatures are great. I love them as a person, but for the plants, we went from having weeks in the highs of the 30s to highs in the 60s and 70s just within a week of each other, and it's still March and we're not done with our cold weather yet. We still have at least a month till probably closer to 6 weeks until our last frost. And what that means is a lot of perennials that are more tender may start pushing growth. I'm seeing some on some now that could get damaged by frost or freezes later. And for a lot of shrubs, including Hydrangea macrophylla or big leaf hydrangea, their buds may start to swell when we're still got freezing or cold weather ahead. So I'm not doing anything to my macrophylla hydrangeas because I'm testing and trialing them for y'all. So you'll know what varieties work great up here in our crazy cold winters and then crazy spring back and forth temperatures. But if you're concerned about saving your hydrangea buds and you see them start to swell, that might be something you want to wrap or something like that. So wrap it with burlap and stuff leaves into it to protect them best you can. All of my hydrangea macrophyllas I have planted bloom on old and new woods, so I should get blooms anyway this year, even if all the buds are killed, either through the past winter we had or over the next couple weeks. So this will be a great continuation of the experiment. Let's take a look at some of the plants. I still do not have daffodils. Actually, I have one daffodil plant on the side of the house that just started opening today. So it'll be the first daffodil bloom in the garden this season. And I am a month behind with daffodil bloom. So I don't know what that means for the next couple months as far as getting started up for spring. Looks like we may catch up based on the weather. But I also have no hellebore blooms this year. And I don't know if winter was just so bad, even the hellebore leaves look rough. Last year I got hellebore blooms from ones I planted fall 2023. So if you're in a cold zone like me and you planted hellebores and didn't get any hellebore blooms, I'd be interested to know, to see if that's a similarity. Let's take a look at some plants. So I mention oftentimes that we have a really bad frost heave cycle here in Ohio because it gets so cold, the ground gets so cold, it's so wet, and then as it warms, it pushes some things out of the ground, especially perennials. But you can kind of see that based on all of the landscape staples in my drip irrigation being pushed out of the ground here in certain areas. It's very windy today too. We have very windy days as the seasons transition and bring in warmer weather. So I've got to come through here this week because things are going to start waking up so quickly and cut back perennials. And that includes this feather false carex, which is typically entirely evergreen here. And you can see these need to be cut all the way to the ground. You could bring a push mower through and do that if you like. You could do it with a weed eater. I've done it with a weed eater at my last home. You could use your pruners, of course. I have a weed eater type attachment that is called rotary scissors that I'll come through and just chop them off at the ground and then blow them into the yard so they can be mulched into the soil. But I'm probably going to use that tool for a lot of the perennials that I'm going to be showing you today. A lot of the things that are supposed to be evergreen, which are marginally, and some are marginally hardy here in zone 6, including this encore azalea has browned out. It's still alive under there and it will put on new leaves this season, but all of these leaves have been toasted. So you can see there's a couple in there that are still good. The Heuchera River is looking okay. Some of these, let me show you what I was talking about with the frost heave. And they're kind of common sometimes with Heuchera. You can see it's kind of pushed out of the ground a little bit. These were planted so early in the spring last year that typically that's not a problem. I kind of would recommend you avoid planting heuchera, at least small ones, late in the season here in zone 6, because I have had them completely push out of the ground and then dry up and desiccate over winter and die. These look like they'll be okay. They are putting on some new leaves down here, but it's something to watch for all of these. You can see the ones that were more vigorous, and all of these were planted as plugs. Some survived well and were more evergreen than others. So the purples and the blacks seem to be the best here. The reds, corals, and yellows seem to have taken the most hit from the winter weather. I will be cutting back these as well. These are sweet box or sarcococca, and they took a really bad beating this winter as well. Last year, they stayed, or the one I had was probably, I guess it was this one, stayed completely evergreen. And this year they did not like the ups and downs we had or the super cold weather, but they're all still alive. I can see fresh green growth on some of them at the bottom, or some still green growth here. And so they'll just need to be cut back and they will bounce back rather nicely. The lilac here is buds are pushing. This is 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 𝗏, so it's between a purple and a pink. And I can actually see some purple there in the bloom, which still really early, so that's concerning as far as our weather goes, but if it stays reasonable, we might get some blooms early. I will also probably come out here over the next week and work on my roses. I do have some dieback on these roses that I pruned. I sometimes leave my roses alone in winter because this has happened previously. If we've had a rough winter, I have a lot of dieback, but some of these canes that look dead actually have a bud right there. So they just look rough. This one that's black, I'm not so much. It looks like it might have a bud there, but we'll see. It looks like a goner, but this one that's really brown, that looks like a pretty fresh bud there. So we'll see if they come back, but I am noticing completely new growth in several locations on these, including down there at that one on a lot of my roses. So I need to get these. I might give it a little more time to see what's actually dead, but I didn't get to pruning all my roses. So to the extent that I have some that are unpruned, I need to get to defoliating them before they start putting on new growth and cleaning them up a little bit, including the climbing rose on the arbor over there. Speaking of roses, I'm not sure when I'll exactly get this video out. I'm going to try and get it out sometime during the week this week, but Heirloom Roses is running a up to 50% off sale on roses, and there's a special coupon code you can use below. I did put it in the community postings of my YouTube channel the other day because I wasn't sure if I would get a video out, but I'll put it in the comments section that you can use if you're interested in purchasing any roses during the sale. I've got my order and I'm going to be doing a video on those, but I don't know if I'll get that video out before the sale's gone, so check it out if you're interested. I came out earlier after work and started looking at some of my blooming trees, and I'm concerned about this red bud. It's beautiful. It's one I got from Brown's and planted in the fall of 2023. It struggled all through last year. We had a really tough drought for several weeks and extremely hot weather last summer towards the middle of summer. The reason I'm concerned is a lot of the branches have buds on them, and yet some of the branches don't have any. So these smaller branches here, I was trying to take my fingernail and kind of press in to see if I could get my fingernail to go in or scratch off a little bit, and some of them seem really dead. So you can see these just break right off. So I've got a lot of dead, but there's still some life in some of the branches. So I'm hoping there's enough left that survive that it's not like crazy, not proportional, because I like its face shape now, but I'll probably have to come through and cut off quite a bit of limbs based on what I'm seeing so far. And that's primarily, I know that based on experience, that redbuds often have a ton of blooms along the bark this time of year. And my other redbud over here, I'll show you, which is Midnight Express from Proven Winners. It's a smaller variety right now, or a smaller tree in general, but there are buds all over it. So you might be able to see all of these buds along the stem and the trunk and every branch of this, even up to some of the tippy tip points have buds on it. So these will be beautiful in like another week or two. And I'll show you all of those when they bloom because I'm excited about a lot of them. Looks like I just noticed this maple's starting to push its red leaves too before it comes out into its green. Gosh, it's crazy how much a couple weeks in spring make in a few days of nice weather. Looky here, these are my most open daffodils. All the others are barely open or don't even have blooms yet. You can see how far behind those are. It's weird how some of them, this is the south facing side of the house, and so it's probably getting a little radiant heat. But it's looking really pretty, and I'm happy to see these, even if they are a little late. What it does mean is that their foliage is likely to stick around longer in the year, which I don't really love after the blooms are gone. Here, because it stays so cold for so long and then it gets warm really quickly, daffodils like seem to linger forever. And you're not supposed to really cut the foliage down because it risks harming the bulb's production for next year. But sometimes I get a little like antsy and I do it anyway just because they can look really ratty sometimes as they're starting to die down. But best practice is sort of leave them until they completely dry up. Got a lot of green growth on this green wall spire crabapple from first edition Shrubs and Trees. And so I'm hoping we have some nice blooms here soon, right after it pushes out these leaves. This is a really nice crabapple for a really small area. It only gets like 1.5 to 2 foot wide. I forget the exact width, but it's very skinny and upright. So great accent tree to put maybe on the corner of your house, or you could form a little hedge with several of them. Really, really beautiful specimen. They have the green one and they're coming out with, I think, one that has red leaves or purple leaves as well. And I think it's a couple years behind market, but let me keep my eye out for that one as well. It is with great sadness that I tell you that I'm probably abandoning an annual cut flower garden for this year. I got too many projects going last year and got a ton accomplished, admittedly, but the garden was left as it was. The cutting garden was left as it was. In the fall, I never got to covering my dahlias. Winter was really bad. I doubt I will have any dahlias come back. If they do, good for them. I will grow them on the trellises here, but I just don't have enough time in the day and the spring to get everything ready with a garden this size. And I've just quickly come to terms with the fact that I don't have to do it all. Like, shrubs are my bread and butter. Love shrubs, perennials, and the annuals I plant in containers. I don't have to have a cut flower garden. I enjoy a lot of my flowers outside on the actual shrubs themselves, or perennials. So I will probably in the future continue to put perennials into the space. I intend to add some more in this space, but as far as annuals this year, I probably just won't be able to have time to put annuals in here. And also there was some deer pressure on some of the roses that I planted here last spring. And so I don't want to put anything in here annuals where I don't have any barrier up to protect them and then they just get decimated by deer. That just break my heart. But I did divide a bunch of peonies that I had already on the property last year, and I'm seeing them starting to show as well. So I will have a ton of peony blooms to use for myself in arrangements, just probably no dahlias. And then plenty of other like roses and stuff throughout the garden to cut on. But should probably come check out the dahlias, but I'm not seeing, it would be way early to see dahlia growth, which would be even more concerning. But I doubt they survived our really, really cold winter. I had intended to come through and pile mulch up on top of this, and it got cold way too quickly here, as sometimes happens, and I just did not get to it. But I do have like entire rows of phlox and yarrow and other things to use in arrangements this summer. That was my kind of goal anyway, was to have a more perennial cutting garden rather than an annual cutting garden. I do have a bunch of seeds from Floret Flower that I bought last year that I never started a single one of. I did a video, never had time to get any started. Always running thin around here. So I'm going to if I get to it, I may start some of those in soil blocks after I get a lot of the other areas finished this year. Oftentimes I surprise myself with how much I can complete in a short period of time, but I don't want to be starting zinnias in July and not be able to enjoy them with our shorter seasons here. We got some spirea action coming along. This is candy corn, which emerges this beautiful red color, and before it turns its more typical yellow, and then in the fall it turns red as well. Oh, one thing I need to do, which sitting here reminded me, is to cut back all of my ninebarks that look so rough. I mentioned I was going to do that, and so that might be something that I come and do this week as well, and just literally cut them off at the ground. Some of them look really rough because they were here when I moved in, and then I moved them around the garden to a different location. They weren't cared for really great in their last location by the previous owner. And so some of the branches are dead or sparse, and cutting them back to the ground and just giving them kind of a rejuvenation prune will be good for these. I had a lot of comments in the video that I mentioned last year of people who do this regularly to their ninebark. It's not something that I would recommend doing, trimming it part way, unless there's like dead growth, because it can ruin its vase shape. But if you're just cutting it down to the ground and starting fresh, that should work based on the comments I've seen. Not seeing any blooms yet on my Dandyman color wheel. I was expecting to get some here soon. So maybe over the next couple weeks I'll be able to show you the blooms on these. You can see how rough winter was just on some of the shrubs in general. This is a 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 here called Fluffy, and it's supposed to be yellow, and you can see some of the branches and needles are actually brown. So seeing some of that also on the hollies back here. The wind was just so rough and it was so cold that even the hollies, which is unusual, are black or brown in some areas. So those leaves will dry up and fall off most likely, and we'll go from there. I'm really hopeful that this area around the swing set is really pretty this spring and summer. I've got all of the Popstar hydrangeas planted in here. There are 10, 5 on this side, 5 on the other. There are some 6 bloomstruck hydrangeas, 1, 2, 3, 3 on the other side, and I think it's Pruner's Gatsby Pink oak leaf hydrangeas at the back, so it's from shortest to tallest. And then right now there's some daffodils blooming in here, which I had just now seen as well. These were on the property when I moved in. They were up front. I dug them up last spring because they were in a huge clump that looked really odd. I literally tossed them on the north side of my house on the dirt. And as you can see, they stayed there until fall. So like end of October, November. I threw water on them every now and then. They're literally on top of the soil, not exaggerating at all. And they survived all summer, and I planted them in the fall, and you can see they did fine. So bulbs can take a beating, and these are nice large clumps already because I had so many of them. You can see how many over there that are planted as well, that I thought they would look nice in between these hydrangeas in nice clumps. And by the time the hydrangeas start going, the daffodils will start dying back, and you won't be able to see them that much. So kind of perfect planting here for me, hopefully. And then we have this first edition's Gladiator crabapple, which is putting on its darker leaves right now, and hopefully we'll have some blooms over the next couple weeks. Really excited about this variety. It gets 5 to 6 foot wide, I think, maybe a little wider. Not much wider, but it's also a skinny and upright crabapple that'll fill this space of the swing set. All right, I'm going to call the video right here so we can show you some other things in the next video. I'm so glad that it's warming up and I can get outside and things are starting to grow. It has been a really, really tough winter for me. I've not felt like producing hardly any content, as you have probably noticed. But I'll be back at it soon. Thank y'all for joining, and remember, be a light. Take care. Bye.